Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to another Mortal Kombat video. Or is it? In celebration of the incredible reveal of Omniman this week. Like, seriously, did you see that shit? In commemoration of this crossover with Invincible, today I wanted to do a brief cover of Omniman's history and talk about what does he bring to the Mortal Kombat universe that makes him so unique in comparison to that of everyone else. Now, I will say, I am doing this for a number of different reasons. For one, I'm a massive fan of Invincible, and Season 2's around the corner. And two, many of you might not actually be familiar with Omniman, or even Invincible as a whole. Because simply on a surface level, it could be seen as just another superhero show, especially with the oversaturation of it for the last decade or so. With even Omniman looking like your cut-of-the-mill, evilish Superman clone. But that's the beauty of the Omniman facade, because whilst the evil Superman trope has been done to death in media, I will say that Omniman is actually a very unique take on this archetype, and shares more with that of a Saiyan than what you would expect of Superman. So with that said, who exactly is Omniman? Well, his real name is actually Nolan, given the last name Grayson, once arriving on the planet Earth. And somewhat similar to that of his Superman archetypes, he is extraterrestrial in nature, having come from the prosperous planet of Viltrum. However, unlike that of Kryptonians, Viltrumites are a warrior race of conquerors, ones born to destroy and spread their empire and name, having them be one of the most dangerous races in the Invincible series, as they sport incredible strength, endless durability, and nigh invulnerability. To top this off, they have the ability of flight, and actually age much slower the older they grow. But that's not to say that Viltrum itself didn't have its fair share of problems, as its rise to conquest would be led by its first emperor, the full-blooded Viltrumite, Argul, a very ruthless individual that embodied their fighting spirit and endless bloodlust. Thus, upon becoming emperor, Argul would want them to spread their names across the stars. Something they were largely successful with, but understandably, such ambition would cause strife amongst the Empire, later leading to his demise by one of their own. And this is actually a key plot point in Invincible, because Argul is actually the father of Nolan. Now, the death of Argul caused quite the uproar and power struggle across Viltrum, later leading to a horrific civil war, which quite literally cut their population in half. But from its ashes rose a new and far more dangerous empire. The quality of Viltrumites were far more refined, with the strongest of them all now being led by Frag, Argul's somewhat successor. But the ambitions of the Viltrumite Empire eventually led to the creation of the Coalition of Planets, an organization that would take a firm stand against their tyranny. But to stop them, the Coalition were forced to create what is known as the Scourge Virus, a plague that would only infect Viltrumites and brutally kill them. It was in fact so aggressive that it ended up wiping out 99.9% of its entire population. So by the time of the show and comic, there are only about 37 fully blooded Viltrumites left. So how does Nolan come into the picture here? Well, despite his noble heritage, Nolan's bloodline was left as a complete secret to him. Being a child of Argul naturally painted a target on his back. So growing up, he was completely oblivious to his origin, and even just a soldier of the Empire. But the quality of his bloodline was so pure that Nolan was tremendously strong, even by Viltrumite standards, being seen as an ideal candidate to be sent off to conquer worlds. But Nolan's approach was far more cunning than most, as once he arrived at planets, he would crush their strongest champion in order to assert dominance and control over their people. It's there where they would be indoctrinated to that of the Viltrumite Empire. But in the case of Earth, it would be an entirely different approach. With multiple heroes of varying strengths scattered across the planet, Nolan chose to bide his time on Earth, infiltrating its people and gaining the trust of Cecil Stedman, as well as the Guardians of the Globe, this universe's equivalent of the Justice League. By doing so, he knew exactly what he was up against. But during this time on Earth, Nolan would fall in love with an Earth woman by the name of Debbie, and together they would sire a child by the name of Mark Grayson, being half Viltrumite, half human. And whilst he still was dedicated to that of the Empire, Nolan's time on Earth changed his nihilistic and pessimistic attitude on life. His time as a loving husband, father, and hero had really turned him human in his heart. But there was always still a part of him that belonged to Viltrum. Now, when Mark's powers finally materialize, Nolan reverts back to that of his old Viltrumite ways, icing the Guardians, and then attempts to have Mark join his side. But whilst Mark is similar to his father, having idolized him as a child, Mark was raised human, having known very little about Viltrum and any of its people. So with no other choice, Nolan is forced to battle his own son. And it's a brutal slaughter, with the battle spilling out across states and leaving Mark in a critical condition. Nolan nearly kills him, but simply can't quite finish the job, as his humanity bleeds through, and Nolan decides to abandon Earth, leaving it in a safe yet vulnerable state to that of the rest of the universe. So, what now happens with Nolan? Well, you gotta tune into season 2 to find out. But for real, a lot happens with this character that I'd honestly much rather not spoil for you, especially with season 2 just around the corner. The future of Nolan's character is a very interesting one, especially with his ties to that of Argyle. We're in for a hell of a ride, so I do strongly recommend for those unfamiliar with the source material to definitely check it out. Especially the Amazon show, as it is the most accessible. And I will say, he fits in a lot better than you'd think, as it definitely feels like Omni-man is actually cut from the same cloth here, like the Shao of old, being very similar in their conquest across worlds, as both seek to expand their empire, power, and influence. But unlike that of Shao, Nolan does this to spread the name of Viltrum, whereas Shao did it for his own personal ambitions. That is what I would say is the difference between the two, but the similarities are most certainly there. I also do think that Omniman does stand out amongst the cast here, especially from a power scale perspective, because when you put it into frame, the feats of strength he has performed, he's really strong, which is kind of expected, but unlike that of Kryptonians, Omniman does not sport the weakness of kryptonite. Instead, they have a few more niche ones. So Viltrumites, whilst durable, can most definitely be killed, but it takes a lot of blunt force trauma in order to break that skin, or a devastating blow to blow off an appendage. Now, one of the more unique and somewhat niche weaknesses to them is actually the heightened senses, as certain loud sounds and frequencies can actually hurt them, leaving them in a frozen paralyzed state, or even in some rare cases, killing them. So whilst incredibly strong, he is not unkillable, with characters like Sindel being individuals that could contend with the likes of Nolan. So I wouldn't say that Omni-Man is entirely out of place in the Mortal Kombat universe. He fits into this mold a lot better than one might think. I mean, outside of the sheer brutality and carnage, Nolan and the Invincible universe has a heavy amount of depth and lore that can relate to a lot of the characters here in very different ways. As there are characters like Baraka, whose claws could emulate that of the Rognar, feral beasts with claws that can tear Viltrumite skin to ribbons. Characters like Sindel could even paralyze and kill the likes of Nolan, and even Liu Kang or Onaga are adversaries that could really allow Nolan to cut loose and unleash his full potential as a Viltrumite. So again, whilst the Superman archetype could be seen as overpowered, he's a character that fits into this universe very well, and that's somewhat the beauty of the Invincible universe. As whilst these characters are absurdly strong, they are still mortal. And with the inclusion of J.K. Simmons as his voice actor, it's going to be very interesting to see just how much of the show influences the game, and what will they reference that will inevitably come in the future. I'm very excited for the inclusion of Omniman in Mortal Kombat 1, and I cannot wait to see how he interacts with this universe and world, as I can see it most definitely being one that he looks to enslave to the Viltrumite Empire. So with that said, I now pose you all this question: what are your thoughts on Omni-Man? And of course, what is your favourite Invincible moment? Please do comments down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say. Plus, for you non-Mortal Kombat fans, welcome to the channel, and for you newer fans being introduced to Invincible, please do enjoy the ride, as there will most certainly be more of this content coming your way. But for now everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. Take care everyone, I'll catch you all soon.